These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
So I don't think podcasts existed, Jim, Pete, and Kyle, the last time the Timberwolves played a second-round playoff series. Is this the first ever podcast preview of a Timberwolves second-round playoff series right now?
Yeah, I don't think Twitter existed. I think you
Did
had
MySpace exist?
It was MySpace. You would have I would have had Jim and Grady and Phil in my top 8. I would have had "Raised by Wolves" or something as my background song. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Twitter in it itself did not exist the last time the Minnesota Timberwolves had advanced past the first round of the playoffs.
Blog sites existed though. Was Canis Hoopus was around, right?
Canis was around at the time. Yeah.
Okay. So Canis was around.
Those guys were barely credentialed. I'm not even sure Cristaldi and Kent Whip and those guys even credentialed those dudes back in the day.
That's probably true. Yeah, I would have not been let in the building.
They were just truly in their parents' basement watching inside the NBA. So we got Flagrant Howls here, and this is fun. Jim Pete's on the show here. We got Kyle, producer Ross. I'm Phil Mackey. Something's missing here, boys. I feel like someone or something is missing from the group here. Let me see here if we can press a button and just see if we can make something happen. Oh wait,
no way.
Oh wait, it's Michael Grady.
Man.
Let's
Grady,
go.
why you front like that, Grady? I just saw his ass.
I just saw Joe.
Michael Grady back on Flagrant Howls.
Podcast. I said, little do you know.
I'm going to cry.
I didn't tell Kyle or Jim Pete that this was going to happen, but
And Michael didn't tell me. I literally just saw him at practice. I was like, I got to roll. I got to go do this podcast. And I was like, okay, see ya.
Well, dude, welcome in here. Grady is going to be hanging out with us we're going to try and do it weekly with Grady here on Flagrant Howls and Jim Pete. If we can make it match so that we're all on here together, awesome. But we figured let's beef this up, beef the roster up even more as the Wolves go into the second round of the playoffs. So thank you, Michael Grady, for joining Flagrant Howls, man.
No, good to be on with you bros. Phil, Kyle, appreciate you guys. Good seeing you guys during this postseason run. And then my brother.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. This is great. What a great surprise.
I was telling Jim Grady after Game 4 and the dust had settled. I was in Phoenix late night, come back, kind of catch up on the timeline. It was cool that in that moment, the team advances to the second round for the first time in 20 years. Emotions are so high. We're happy for Carl. Ant's doing his thing. Half my timeline was just love for the two of you. Like in that moment, fans could have gone any different way they wanted, but they wanted to show the two of you love. We've tried to do that on this show a lot, but as a fan, first and foremost, I just want to congratulate the both of you because you make my viewing experience so much better, and you've educated me a lot on basketball. You've embraced Nevermind, which makes me feel good. I've given it to Grady, but seriously, you guys are literally the best in the business, and from a fan perspective, we are so appreciative that you do these pods and that you call all these games, because without you guys, it wouldn't have been as fun. So thank you.
No, that means a lot. That means a lot, and I'm sure Jim would agree. The team is what's going to is what brings people in. And if we add something to enhance that experience, for me, that's just a great compliment. We're having a ball, but a big reason for that is that Ant is out of his mind. This team collectively, they're out of their mind. There's so many little storylines throughout this team that we just love being storytellers and being a part of it. So we share the joy, the enthusiasm of you and the fan base. And so, no, that means a lot. It truly does.
And Jim Pete, so you're going to be doing some work with Alan Horton in the playoffs too, right? So people can hear you during the games on that front.
Yeah, Horton and I have done this over the years. I've done games with Alan, and basically, we'd be on the road, and it's a TNT game, and I'd be sitting out doing nothing, and Alan would say, "Why don't you just join me?" And so I'd join him, and I wouldn't get compensated in any way. I just did it because sitting next to Horton, because as great as Grady is, Alan is equally as good at his job. What he brings to the table, being a one-man band and being so super entertaining, Like, it just is, we're really lucky to have all these really great Don't tell me, I thought you were going to bring Horton on here.
Oh, wouldn't that have been something?
Just the Avengers. Who else can we bring
Oh
on?
man, that would have been a
Should've
real
thought
surprise right there. But no, so we've done it before, and so I just literally, I was talking to Ellen, and we've talked about it in the past, but I didn't, I want to get it official because there's a certain level of comfort you get. Alan's really comfortable doing his job the way he's doing it, and not that he doesn't want any help, but sometimes he just likes doing his thing his way. And so for him to welcome me in the way he has is great. Like, we're gonna have fun. I'm gonna miss doing games with Michael, but if not with Michael, Alan Horton is just, just a great, as you guys know, he's just fantastic. So.
And Grady, you're still going to be on the road though, right? Too, like you're both going to be in Denver, and you'll be doing stuff, so we'll still see you around.
Yep, absolutely, excited about that.
Well, let's talk about the series here, boys. So I'm going to throw a take out that I ran by Judd yesterday. You guys tell me if I'm being too homerish or off base here, but these two teams are 8-8 against each other the last 16 times they've played. That includes the playoff series win by the Nuggets last year. But it kind of feels to me like, and I'm going to preface this by saying, the Nuggets are still absolutely the team to beat in the Western Conference. They have the best player in the world, and all respect the Nuggets. It feels to me like they might be a tick lesser than last year when these two teams met 12 months ago. Bruce Brown, for instance, who's off to the Eastern Conference, not on the roster, was like a plus 40 in the series in 5 games off the bench against the Wolves. Jamal Murray was seen walking around with a calf wrap the size of a watermelon before a couple of those Lakers games. So it feels to me like Nuggets might be a touch lesser, and the Wolves are adding Jaden McDaniels to the matchup. He didn't play last series a year ago. Naz Reid, right? Anthony Edwards feels like a level up. The Rudy Gobert chemistry is different. So it feels to me like the Wolves are a tick or multiple ticks better. Am I right? And if I am, is that enough for the Wolves to win this series, do you guys think?
Go ahead, G.
On paper, you're 100% right, and that's good fodder for us. We all know that the guys that we mentioned who were in this series who weren't there a season ago, they're going to have an impact. It's one thing to say that Jaden's out there and Naz is out there, but they're going to have to play at a high level. You can't just simply say, "Oh, we got more horses." You're going to have to play your tail off. And then from Denver's standpoint, they don't have Bruce Brown, but that last regular season game that would have helped the Timberwolves secure the number 1 seed, we lost because of Peyton Watson. We lost because of the hustle of Christian Brown. So those guys are going to have to be, neutralized, and you can't really sleep on those guys. I think from a fearlessness standpoint, that's what makes this intriguing for me. The fact that, yes, these are the defending champions. They have Nikola Jokic. They have Jamal Murray, who even on one leg slaughtered the Lakers in that game 5. But that said, this is a Timberwolves team that doesn't flinch against anybody, let alone this team that they've matched up and played well against. And the tear that Ant is on right now, he's just coming off a series where he looked KD in the eye and said, "You guys are below me." So from that standpoint, it's fascinating. But all the advantages that they may have on paper, it has to show up on the floor.
The other thing for me is I just said that this is the most connected Timberwolves team coming into this Phoenix series. And even, for me, it's been all season long because this chemistry that Minnesota has was evident even last year, going back to when Minnesota got Mike Conley and Nikhil. And so the injuries to Naz and to Jaden last year obviously impacted the success of this team, but the connectedness that this team had to not only each other, but the coaching staff and the front office and the front office to the business side. Like, we've never had this much cohesiveness. When I first started, Kevin McHale and Flip Saunders were tight, but there was no relationship with the business side. And the front office was just, I don't know, it just was small. And KG was, obviously a great leader, and there was a connectedness between he and Cassell and Sprewell. But what this team has now is it's just on another level. And so some of that is based on the fact that this team has been homegrown. This team has 9 players that have been drafted by this team, or this is where they started their NBA career. Guys like, Jordan McLaughlin, those guys, all those those first and second year guys are all homegrown here, and not to mention Cat and Ant and all the players that Minnesota has on their roster. They have 9 of them. So the only team that has more is Denver. Denver has 10. And so that's a really connected group of guys over there. And so you look at the top 3 teams in the West this year, I think you have 3 of the most connected teams in the league at the top 3 of the Western Conference between OKC. I mean, those guys are like a band of brothers. every post-game interview, I've never seen anything like
barking.
it. I mean, seriously, they're connected. And then the same thing is true with the Nuggets. They have 10 guys that have started their careers in the Denver system. So I think that's the one thing that we had the advantage of. And Finch kind of made this point at the end of practice today, was that Denver, is just a different level team of connectedness. The Phoenix Suns, as I mentioned before, last time we were on this podcast, guys, they only had one player who had been homegrown, and that's Devin Booker. And so they were a little easier to splinter apart when things went bad for them. This Denver team, Minnesota's got to be on point, man. This is a series where they have to execute. They can't have any letdowns, and they've got to have an equal level of an energy that they brought in that Phoenix series.
Jim, on here, we've talked a lot about the chemistry between you two, Grady and you, and how strong that's become. But back in again, we do this every week now. You played, I didn't. Back in your playing days, how hard was it to build that level of trust and chemistry among your teammates? And then how important was it, 24 seconds left in the fourth, you're down 1 to just know where guys will be, or know certain situations because you've gone through those reps in the past?
Well, the team that went to the NBA Finals, we made it to the finals my second year in the league, and we were just a young group of guys, and we were a together group. Like, we all, went to dinner together, we went to movies together, we did stuff together, which is a pretty big telltale sign of how connected you are as a group. When I was with the Golden State Warriors, that team was even closer. Chris Mullin, Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, that group was super tight. And I just know that obviously winning helps build some of that, but it's the culture that's set by the front office and the coaching staff. The coaching staff, how good they are. Bill Fitch was a fantastic coach. Don Nelson is a basketball genius. Like, that guy was easy to follow. And that's why Chris Finch is just, Michael knows. We talk about this. Chris Finch is just a tremendous leader, and Tim Connolly is in that same vein. And I'm just so impressed with Finchy and the strings that he pulled. And at practice today, even though he was, sitting on the sidelines and he was sitting down, he still had a commanding presence in that workout, right, Michael? He still was coaching, and guys were just were so listening. And there was a big applause when the guys went into film before practice started today, and Finchy evidently was in there sitting there waiting for them, and it's the first time they had seen him. So there was a big applause, so I don't know. It's that chemistry. It's not always easy to bottle. It's not easy to quantify, or you can tell at the beginning of the year, when you start acquiring players, how it's going to work out. But man, this team has it.
Yeah, the chemistry is.
Sorry, my internet.
Special.
Hey, let Grady talk, Phil.
Or just adding to that, because Jim is so on point and he's seen it time and time again. And I remember reference this when I was doing radio years ago. There was this school that did a study that looked at an entire season and the number of times teammates touched each other, whether it be a high five, a pat on the back, pat on the butt, whatever it may be, a huddle, helping the guy off the floor. And the teams that had physical contact the most were the better teams in the NBA. In this particular season, I think it was the Phoenix Suns that had the top record in the West or something like that. And so always pay attention to that connectivity. And Jim and I, we talk about it all the time. You don't measure chemistry on when things are going well, because obviously everybody is going to be, excited and all that type of stuff. But when you're facing adversity, and that has impressed me the most with this Timberwolves team this season, especially going from last year. We all remember game 82 and at times where guys are maybe quick to get a technical or whatever it may be. The poise that they showed in this just most recent series against Phoenix, the third oldest team in the NBA, and the poise that they showed, not only at home, but then to go into Phoenix and close it out the way that they did. so impressive. The chemistry is strong. They're connected. And as Jim said, they're facing one of the most connected teams in the NBA and a team that's been to the promised land. So it'll take a whole other level of connectivity, poise, and mental toughness to get through this one.
Jim, that's that green dot, red dot you're talking about, right? Kind of thing. Like
Yes,
you brought that
yeah.
up last week, and people loved that. Not a theory, I guess, that concept.
Yeah, Michael. I just was like last week. I just was talking about my buddy Scott Savor, and this is what he does. I first met him with the Minnesota Lynx. He started out. He'd come and watch our practices, and he would talk about the various levels of connectivity and touch points, and so he literally gives like you a grade of how many times you are in the green zone, which is like what you're saying, like physical touch, high fives, patting each other back. You throw me a pass, I score, I point at you. It's that level of connectivity. And then there was also the redlining part of it, which how often are you complaining to the officials, or how often is the coach screaming and yelling at the players, and how often do you see players looking at each other and like yelling and arguing with each other? So you get a score for that. And Timberwolves, man, they get high scores on their level of connectivity on touch points during the course of a game. So it's super important. You can see it when a team has it, and you can definitely see it when they don't. The Phoenix Suns, it's not that they were like bitching at each other and stuff like that, but we definitely saw scenarios when they were, Michael, right? I mean, you can see how splintered apart they were.
Yeah, yes. And sometimes those worst moments are when you're not saying anything. It's just an eye roll. Like that type of stuff. We saw a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Conley, he did a couple interviews and was talking about that exact thing, that like every time that something would happen in our favor, they'd look over and see the Suns, subtle eye rolls, like Grady just said. And every time on our side, we get stronger, we get tighter, our body language gets better. Just a few minutes ago, Grady brought up, kind of in passing, that it felt like Anthony Edwards just went into that Sun series and said, I'm walking up the NBA pecking order. I'm going to pass Devin Booker. I'm going to pass Kevin Durant, and it's going to be obvious for the world to see. How would you both, but we'll start with Grady on this, how would you describe Anthony Edwards' current place in the NBA? I'll steal Nick Wright's club superstar, where he's got sort of the pecking order. Like, where is Anthony Edwards at in the pecking order of NBA players now after that first round? How would you describe that?
It was funny going into the series. A lot of folks were talking Team USA, Paris, starting two guard, Booker or Anthony Edwards. And Jim and I would say, I mean, it's Ant. A lot of folks are still putting Booker ahead. When you look at the whole roster, you go, oh, okay, maybe Tatum is in that starting lineup ahead of both those guys. I still would put Ant ahead of Tatum. And that may be a homer take, but what he does on both sides of the basketball, and then if you have a starting lineup with Steph, LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Embiid, do you really need what Tatum is going to bring to the table? So what Ant is willing to do in terms of, the dirty work with the scoring, I can lock down your best perimeter player. That stuff, he's just continuing to elevate himself. And to me, what impressed me so much in looking at that game 4 is, again, you're in a hostile environment. You're facing Kevin Durant, who's going off. You got Booker with 49. And Ant is putting on a performance in the clutch moments that make you forget all about that. Mm-hmm. I was telling people I watched The Last Dance just to kind of get in this like MJ mode, and I've told this story before, but one of the things that I remember and that I appreciated was when Doug Collins took over as Bulls head coach. It was his first game. They were at the Garden. They were getting cooked. Collins is barking at his guys. He's developing this white crust around his lips and whatnot. And MJ, out of a timeout, hands him a Gatorade and says, "Wipe that stuff off your mouth. I'm not going to let you lose your first game." And he went out there and they won the game. And Ant had this confidence about him that even with Booker firing away, even with Kevin Durant firing away, he's like, I got this. And the shots that he took and the intimidating plays that he made, and Jim can add to this, he's made intimidating plays at home, but of course on the road as well, that it's like the crowd knows whose house this is and everybody on the floor. He's become an intimidating presence that if he's not being recognized universally for his superstardom and being one of the top 10 players in the entire NBA, we'll definitely be saying it by the end of this Denver series.
So Finch told me a funny story. I think Michael was there. We were after game 3, Michael, we were sitting in the lobby and we were talking about Team USA, and Finchie was telling us a story about Steve Kerr calling him and asking him about Anthony Edwards. And he was saying, hey, one of the things Kerr's telling Finchie, he goes, one of the things I want Ant to do is come off the bench. He goes, I might need him to come off the bench. And Finchie's like, look, Ant's going to do whatever you want to do. So when Kerr's talking to Ant about it, and he's telling Ant about when Kobe Bryant was on the team, that Dwayne Wade came off the bench for Team USA. And Ant's like, well, coach, that's great, but who on this team is Kobe Bryant?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, he goes, I'm fine. I'll come off the bench, but who on this team is Kobe Bryant? Which is, so Ant is Kobe Bryant now. I mean, Ant is, and I hear people talking about who they would trade Ant for. And I think that, Michael, we've talked about this. And there was a time, you could maybe put more people on the list, but I think right now, the name is Jokic, and maybe that's it. I mean, that's the only player I would even remotely even think about. Even Wembanyama, I obviously I was in the 84 draft, and so Hakeem Olajuwon was drafted 1 and Jordan was drafted 3. Would you trade Michael Jordan in year 4 for Hakeem Olajuwon? I mean, I think some people might think about it. I mean, like, Olajuwon was almost on Jordan's level. And if you ask Michael Jordan who's on his level and who was he most afraid of as a pro, I mean, it was Hakeem Olajuwon that Jordan was most afraid of. And obviously, Olajuwon is a Hall of Famer and a great player, and he won 2 championships. But I'm not trading Ant for Wembanyama. Are you? I'm not. He's just, we know how special he is, but man, he's taken it to another level. Now it's kind of frightening to see him take that next leap. And the fact that he figured out the playmaking part of it. I mean, what he did from the regular season into the playoffs against Phoenix is one of the biggest transformations intellectually. And now, Michael and I were pointing this out during the game, during a late game situation. It was a dead ball free throw situation. And Ant is literally calling everybody over into a huddle. Yep. He's like, you guys saw that, Kyle, you saw it. He's like calling guys. He's like, Mike, he's like, Cat, get over here. And he's like, can we stop fucking fouling, please? Like,
there's a good video. There's a good video that I think it's NBA on TNT that Kevin Garnett retweeted last night. But it was that, Jim. It was this minute of the dunk was nasty, right? The 2 blocks that he had on Devin Booker that I'm with Grady. Kind of like he took the chain from Devin Booker in that moment. It's like, no, I will be now running Team USA. Thank you very much. Bonjour. But it was those things where he brought everyone together and said, stop fouling. Or in the huddle, he's like, hey, you don't have to worry about me being locked in. I'm here. And Mike Conley's like, take us home 5. So the playmaking, the shooting, the athleticism is all great. I think the leadership stuff, man, you guys are around the team closer than anyone. To be 22 years old and be a leader of men at an age where you're still really finding yourself, that's what has put it over the top for me.
He wants to win as much as anybody.
Yep.
This is why, being around Kevin Durant for a while, Kevin Durant respects guys who just love hooping.
Yeah.
And he loves Anthony Edwards because that's all Ant cares about. He'll show up into the arena in sweats, and all he cares about is just getting to work. And it's the mentality as well that sets him apart. This is why I was laughing at the LaMelo Ball, like, LaMelo's talent. He's not on this level. And I think people are recognizing that now. But there have been a lot of talented players. There are a lot of talented players in the league right now. There's been a lot of talented players in the last 15, 20, 25 years or whatnot. But when people are comparing him to Mike and Kobe, like when you think about killers, those are the first 2 names that come to mind in the last 20, 30 years, right? There have been a lot of talented players, but Tracy McGrady, killer, like win at all costs, do whatever it takes, get stops defensively. No, and he's a Hall of Famer. There's something special about Ant that whatever my team needs, I'm going to go out there, do it, and then have the confidence to say I'm going to shut you down and I'm going to score on you. The Carmelo Anthony going on this podcast and saying, there's no way I would let Ant talk to me like that. Okay. That was Kevin Durant. He looked eye to eye, not with 10 seconds left on the clock, but in the midst of the battle, and was like, I told you. So it's just something, it just doesn't come every day. It's why we see in those comparisons to two great all-time killers.
Well,
Also, with some love to Carmelo Anthony, I remember a game when Target Center was filled with cars, not people, and Ant hit a three and went 3 fingers to the dome right next to Carmelo. So he also did tell Carmelo what's up, and I don't think Carmelo responded in that moment like he might have done on a podcast. But yeah,
I
I'm
forget
with Grady.
what coach it was. What coach did Ant say? He told the coach after he went on some little. It was like one of the first Ant boomlets.
Call timeout.
He told the coach to call timeout. Coach,
call timeout.
I've got to ask Grady quick because I got to ask Jim this, and I know you both, all of us on this show, are basketball nerds and junkies. Yeah. But Grady, being around Durant for a while, like you said you were, I know it was only like game one or whatever, but when Ant and KD had that moment and you and Jim called it perfectly, like from a basketball historian or just like how cool was it in that moment to know that kid was looking at his idol and being like, I'm not scared of you and I'm here. Yeah. And for KD to like laugh made it even that much better and like in the moment.
Because Kevin respected it. Yeah. And it's an intangible that you see in young players that, and I was just telling this story a little bit earlier. You guys remember when the Pacers were going at the Miami Heat in those battles, you know, a decade ago, and there was a play where Paul George dunks on Birdman. And it was this crazy highlight of him dunking on Birdman. This was the closing moments of the third quarter. And then right after that, LeBron hits a three at the Horn. So they're going to their respective benches. They pass each other. And LeBron goes to like dap up like Paul, like, yo, good sequence. And Paul had this like look on his face like, yeah, I'm dapping up LeBron. And he's like, I'm part of the club. And in that moment, I was like, we're done. It's like he's got us. It's just like he's just happy to be a part of the club, and there has to be a level of disrespect. There's respect. Obviously, Ant loves Kevin Durant, but in the field of battle, there has to be a certain level of disrespect there, and we've seen that. Like Kobe Bryant entered the NBA with disrespect. I have so many stories of Kobe Bryant and disrespect, and people just hating Kobe Bryant, veterans hating Kobe Bryant because of the way that he kind of came in. Dwayne Wade, I remember one of his first playoff series wins was against the Hornets, and Baron Davis was that dude at the time. And Dwayne Wade was so disrespectful to Baron in this series and just cooked him. And so when I see, a young player, it's one thing to talk, and it's another thing to be able to back it up. Lance Stevenson, back to my Indiana days, did a lot of talking, but against LeBron, couldn't really back it up. Ant's ability to put in the work, trust his work. As Jim pointed out, mentally continue to take your game to another level and understand, okay, they're throwing three at me, they're blitzing at me. What's the next play? It's gonna make him unstoppable. So it's the work that he's put in, the belief in that work, and then he's at his best when he's talking shit. And we saw that with Tatum this season. We saw that with Draymond Green. Jim, you've seen that from the moment he entered the NBA. You guys have seen it. It's something special.
I don't know if this is a apt prediction. I don't know, but like I start thinking about Ant on the big stage, like especially after Paris this summer, because Team USA, what it did for his game last year, and now going through the Olympics this year and being on that stage. You start thinking about faces of not just like the NBA, but faces of professional sports and like all-time great athletes who are transcendent, who are a world guest. Like Muhammad Ali could go anywhere around the world, and obviously Jordan could as well, and Kobe Bryant. NBA players just have a face, that's recognizable, and they could go to any country in the world and be recognizable and beloved. I think Anthony Edwards is different than Michael and Kobe, and we've talked about this because of the demeanor that they have. Like those two guys were difficult leadership kind of superstars. I think Anthony Edwards is going to end up being beloved on the same level, like as a Muhammad Ali type of player. Like I think he's got that kind of personality. He's got the lovable, like everybody like loves this dude. Like to a man loves him. I have never seen anybody that reacts to Anthony Edwards in a negative way like they would with Jordan or with Kobe. That being said, I think he's going to attract. I think a lot of guys are going to want to play with this dude, Michael. Don't you think?
Yes.
I know people like tell me all the time, like, "Oh man, we're going to lose Grady. We're going to lose Grady." I was like, "No. Michael Grady wants to stay hitched to Anthony Edwards just like we do. We want to stay." We're not leaving. We're not leaving Ant, man. I'm telling you, I'm 62. I'll be like 72 when I retire.
We're trying. Hey, Muhammad Ali needed a Howard Cosell to a certain extent, right?
No, but Ant's going to be after this summer, man. Like I was talking about the legend of Anthony Edwards over this playoff series. The legend of Anthony Edwards is growing and growing. I think it's going to be so much bigger after the Olympics, after all of this. I just can't wait to see what's going to happen. And after the Wolves win a championship here.
He's going to host Saturday Night Live. I know that sounds funny, but like that's going to be the level. He's going to be
100%, and he's going to kill it. He's going to kill it.
Yep.
Like he's got like like we're talking about Kobe and MJ. He's got like a Peyton Manning level of like comedic timing and charm. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
He's going to be, and people say like, well, you got to New York, Miami, LA are the markets to be in. I believe him when he says he wants to be here in Minnesota and carve something out. I can't wait till KG gets back in the mix at some point. Now he's tweeting at Anthony Edwards, break every record in all capital letters. But yeah, Jim, you said championship. If they get through Denver, buckle up, man. I mean, I don't think we're ready to mentally process what happens if they beat Denver here in the next 2 weeks.
They've never lost a second round series in the history of the franchise. True. They've only been in one.
Yep.
But just even beyond this round, if they can, Game 3 will be wild regardless. But if they can steal Game 1 or 2, like, can we even process what Friday night here in Soda is going to be like for Game 3? It'll be unreal. It'll be unreal.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we want to respect your time, and we'll definitely be talking again here throughout the playoffs. But, yeah, just Kyle said it off the top. We hear from so many fans, Flagrant Howls listeners or just Timberwolves fans, how much they love what you guys have done on the broadcasts. It's unfortunate that we can't keep the local TV broadcast going at least through the next couple rounds, but thank you guys for being a part of Flagrant Howls here and just for being awesome at your jobs on TV every single night for Timberwolves fans.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Appreciate
it.
What
about Grady? Way to keep a secret. Damn, if you need a secret kept, Michael Grady, man, yeah.
Grady's the guy.
Good stuff, guys.
By the way, shameless plug here at the end of the episode, scorenorth.com/shop for your Flagrant Howls apparel. Scorenorth.com/shop. We've got a couple new designs in there for Timberwolves fans. Break every record, all caps, scorenorth.com/shop. For Michael Grady, Jim Petersen, Kyle Theige, I'm Phil Mackey, and this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.